With not enough time, choosing your supplies, and not knowing what techniques to try next, I know the struggle all too well. You sit down to create a piece of artwork and think, how do I start? Some of you may be thinking, there's no way that I struggle. But guess what? I struggle with it all too. It can definitely be overwhelming. I want to help build up your confidence so you can trust your own creative voice and get past that blank canvas to get into the play. So let's get to it.
When I'm working my mixed media paper here, I like to add masking tape around the outside edges. I feel it just defines the art space, and it also helps give the piece a finished look later. When you're feeling overwhelmed with that blank page, getting going is always the hardest. So what I do is start with adding masking tape. I like to look at masking tape as a tool that does more than just define the space. It's always going to be that one thing that helps me get started painting. And when you're struggling, this is a huge step to take, just getting the energy moving on that canvas. So we have masking tape down. What's next? We need other supplies to use on our piece. When you're struggling to create, picking out supplies that you already have is the best way to go. I will be using a paint pen. This is a black paint pen, and I have used paint pens in the past. I immediately fell in love with them. They truly take the complexity out of not knowing what the next layer is going to be. In just a moment, I want to share with you some simple things that you could be doing to bring your artwork piece to that next level. But first, let me show you how easy it is to use this paint pen. I knew I only wanted to loosen up with the first layer, so instead of writing something legible or tangible, which would give me something for my right brain to process, I decided to try out scribbles to see if it would give my left brain, the non-critical side of my brain, something to excite. It's just a simple thing to do and will add so much interest to your intuitive painting. When using paint pen scribbles, you're going to need to prep the pen. Before you start using the paint pen, you'll want to be sure that you shake the pen vigorously for a few seconds. You're going to carefully get the paint moving in your pen by pressing the tip straight down on a piece of scrap paper. Making a few scribbles before applying it to your surface is going to help ensure it's working properly. You're going to start anywhere you like on your canvas, and holding the pen on the surface, you're going to then take your pen and move it around the canvas, covering as much or as little of the canvas as you like. You're going to stay in tune with what feels good. As long as the scribbling feels good, keep scribbling. Once it doesn't feel good, stop the scribbles. So I'm going to show you how to blend the marks into the paper. It's another simple thing to do, but it will definitely add the fun factor to your overall piece. I take my water spritzer and spritz it in 2 to 3 areas, and I'm going to use a paper towel to blend the design into the paper. I like to use paper towel because it creates such interest on the canvas. Having white acrylic paint is another simple way to add so much to your intuitive painting. I'm taking my bottle of white paint, squirting a few blobs onto the canvas, and using a brayer to spread the paint only in random areas. This way I get lots of interesting things going on. My next tip is to keep things simple. I think we can all get wrapped up in the idea of every single project has to be so grand, this masterpiece, but when we're struggling to create and being creative is our happy place, try not to focus so much on what it's going to look like when you're done. Just enjoy the process of creating. For my color palette, I'm going to be using 3 colors. I actually want to create a sense of harmony, so I pick 3 colors close to each other on the color wheel. Picking colors close to each other on the color wheel allows me to play around with color without worrying about things turning to mud. You can do the same thing with any 3 colors close to each other on the color wheel. By not using all the colors of the rainbow all at once on your canvas, this might help eliminate some of the stress you feel if you get frustrated like I do. I get so frustrated if my colors turn into mud, but I do have to remember to get out of my own head, try not to stress too much, because after all, it's just paint. I add my color to my intuitive painting with some pink, orange, and yellow. The pink, orange, and yellow and white acrylic paint will really help give some harmony to the painting. I love how all these simple steps are finally coming together. But stick with me because I'm going to share my favorite techniques to bring the whole painting together. So I'm going to be taking my spritzer and spritzing it on different areas. I lightly spritz on some water to some areas, and I really want the design to blend into the background. So adding this layer of spritz water is really going to help with that. For my focal point, I'm going to be using the paint pen again. So I took my paint pen and drew a butterfly onto the intuitive painting. Just a simple outline, not too much detail, but just enough to add a focal point to the intuitive painting. This next step, I add some of the same colors to the butterfly. The butterfly was kind of just sitting there. It didn't feel like it popped from the canvas. So I took my paints and I'm going to add color to different parts of the butterfly. Not too much, but just enough to add a lot of interest and dimension to the intuitive painting. You don't have to use acrylic paint. You could use paint pens, gel pens, ink, or whatever you already have in your stash. We could be done here, but there are even more tips and techniques I want to share with you that you could be doing that will make your painting look that much better. So I'm going to be taking that same acrylic paint that I used earlier and paint it around the butterfly. Doing this is really going to bring the whole painting together. I'm painting with the red, yellow, and orange and white paint. I like to use loose and bold strokes so that I don't get critical of what what things are starting to look like at this point. I just stay in creative flow. I feel it gives a lot more authenticity to the painting. For this next step, I'm going to be using white acrylic paint in the back end of a paintbrush. Adding white to your painting is going to bring that final pop of interest. And it's going to help give that final finished look to your painting. If you don't want to use the back of your paintbrush, you could use a toothpick or a chopstick. Just like with the painting I did, I'm going to add bits of white randomly on the butterfly. This is going to give a lot more interest. I'm also going to add the paint on top of the butterfly body. I love painting butterflies because butterflies are beautiful and they speak to me. So when you're afraid or struggling to start, having one less thing to worry about is really going to help you when you sit down to create. And break that blank canvas. And the blank canvas could be anything for you. A piece of paper, canvas, wood, literally anything. And then here's one of my favorite parts to creating any project. I don't know what it is, but adding glitter to my painting is just so much fun. I added a quote that says, "Live in the sunshine, swim in the sea, drink in the wild air," a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, because when we stop stressing about the end result and really enjoy the process of creating, we'll start to build the confidence we need when we're feeling afraid to start. And I have even more to share with you.
Over at the Painted Playground's studio, right here, thepaintedplayground.com, you can grab this tutorial plus the full list of supplies and the quote used in this intuitive painting. In my Painted Playground Facebook page and YouTube channels, the links are below, right here. I share more tips and break down the process into manageable steps to help make it easier for you to get creating with confidence. I hope to see you there.